Welcome to this session. So in this session, we're going to talk about the attributes for a modern AppSec maturity model. But before we jump in, let's just recap. We had a great session that Brock was hosting around why we need a new application security model, talking about BSIMM, talking about SAM. Tanya, as we just said, just did a great session on metrics, and a lot of great security leaders sharing their thoughts and best practices, and I think we can learn and apply a lot of those. And then today we're going to talk about what the attributes of the maturity model is. Just a quick introduction for myself. I am Mark Lambert. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at ArmorCode, and I've been in AppSec for a little over 20 years, and the thing that I've noticed over that period of time is just a complete lack of maturity. Different companies, I meet with so many different types of organizations. One of the things I cherish about my role in life, and really experiencing those. And I'd like to introduce two people that I really appreciate very much. And I'm going to introduce you, Russell, first. So Russell, please introduce yourself with your new title.
My new title. I am the head of security for SnapDocs, which is a fintech SaaS company. Thank you very much, Mark. It's great. It's an honor to be asked to participate in your panel today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And my good friend Aruneesh, who him and I have spent many an hour working on the process part of the application security model that we're coming out with the Purple Book. So Aruneesh, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and thank you for hosting and being the moderator for this particular panel. So my name is Aruneesh, been in the industry for almost 23 years, and there is hardly anything in technology that I've not touched or operated in, being a pure developer in the network stack, to e-commerce, to working for Oracle, and for almost 18 years that I've been working in the financial industry itself. So I had the distinct pleasure of working for some interesting aspects within this SDLC, DevOps, and few other aspects. And in addition to my current role where I'm running AppSec and CloudSec, I also work as a fractional CISO for various institutions, and happy to be part of this particular panel.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Aruneesh. And I see, okay, well, it looks like actually Mark, I think, came in early. He's going to be on later on in the session, so that'll be good. So so let's kick this off. And obviously, I know both of you pretty well, and I know you've gone through different levels of maturity in different organizations and kind of pulling them through it. And maybe actually I'll lead with you first, Russell, because you've got that experience of coming from Amazon. What are some of the key things? What are the quick wins that somebody can look at to help mature their application security or product security practice?
Oh, quick wins. Okay. Well, it kind of depends on where you are in your particular space. I mean, to me, the application security maturity model is dependent on the organizational maturity model, right? So in other words, it's not independent of where that actually business or organization actually is. So I think that, to me, I kind of look at organizations as kind of starting from a startup phase and moving into a go-go phase of expansion, and then maturity, and then commoditization, kind of like following a product lifecycle. Okay. So I guess my point is that the quick wins that you get are at different points at different places in the process, right? So talking about the kind of the initial phases of application maturity, AppSec maturity, really what you're trying to do is establish awareness, because at this point in the initial phase, there usually isn't even a security professional involved, right? So actually a great win in the initial phase actually might get a security professional actually for your organization. But even if they don't, there are some guidance for software development groups that are in their startup phase. I think there's a really good website called Security for Startups. That's security, the numeral 4 startup, security4startups.com. It provides guidance for non-security professionals on how to start right and how to start doing AppSec and things like that. I think it's a really good idea in the initial phase to at least if you're doing CI/CD, which is continuous integration, continuous deployment, those kinds of software development practices, that there actually be some security testing that's built in. I would say a quick win that I would like to see in some of the initial phases is start doing static analysis, right? Start doing There are some built-in tools, like in the software development world, I would say many software development teams are using GitHub and GitHub Advanced Security, or even some of the free stuff that's available from GitHub. Basically enable some of the feature sets that are available in GitHub Advanced Security to do secret scanning, static analysis, get those things done, and start decorating the PRs so that the developers can see that there's security testing right away. Even if you're not collecting metrics, you're not actually doing tickets or anything like that, but just provide visibility into security testing results. Okay, that's one of the things I'd like to see in like kind of the initial phases of a software development team, that's do some security testing and decorate the PR so that developers get used to seeing security results and they can start making best efforts to fix those things. Then, as later on in the process, when you start actually collecting metrics and you go through soft gating, hard gating and things where you're actually like effectively looking at the test results to figure out if you actually should go to the next stage. That's kind of, I think it's a beginning process. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, I think you're definitely, I'm very much aligned with that, and especially kind of like where you get with Dependabot and the like through GitHub.
Right. It's a good place to start. Sure.
And I know, Aruneesh, you work with folks at very much different stages of maturity. Actually, your point, Russell, was exactly right. It depends where you are, right? So,
right, sure.
What are you seeing kind of as you're kind of like coaching different organizations through this?
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with some of the things that Russell was mentioning. Of course, you have to start with the SAST model, which can be very inexpensive to start with, but there are other areas that I would probably possibly focus on from a supply chain perspective, right?
Okay.
There are loads and loads of open source solutions out there waiting without even spending a dime on the tooling side. You can actually get started very easily and have some integration into your IDE plugins, for example, right? I wouldn't even go at the CI/CD level. I'm just going to be limited to when my developers are coding itself. What tools can I give them? How can I actually make them self-sufficient where they can actually make the right decision? And of course, bad things are going to happen. And that's where the guardrails come in, where you actually have protection in my CI/CD itself and not going even the hard gate route, right? Initially, you just say, okay, I'm going to give enough tools to developers so that they can be handy and they can take the effective decisions on their own. But in a sense, and in the backdrop, I'm going to put like guardrails into the mix where I'm going to block something from being successfully executing, right?
Right.
And there are a couple of other things that I would possibly add is even from a attack surface management, right? You don't have to get like an expensive or any solution at all, right? You can actually go to some of the open source solution, which gives you a good view of your attack surface, and you can actually manage the risk based on that. So that can definitely be a very good starting point.
Yeah, and I think you both kind of like touch upon the same, very similar aspects. Is like just get something in there, just get something going, get people used to it, start layering visibility, and then as we've been talking about, like process is king, right? So Aruneesh, as we've been working on the maturity model, right? The tools support the process, if you like. And I know, Russell, you do that. You leverage the best tool at that point in time and kind of like have that process as you've gone through the maturity. So as you, okay, so we know we're going to put some tools in. Maybe we're not going to spend a lot of money. We're going to get them going. What are the things, what do I need from a building block? And Aruneesh, I'm going to throw this back to you. Is like, what do I need to have established so that I know I'm going to be able to mature the program over time? And it's not just kind of like, I'm kind of like, just turning on tools isn't going to fix the problem, right? So kind of what do I need to put in place to make sure I'm rolling beyond that?
I think you definitely want to be very, very objective about this thing. You have to have like an end goal into perspective, right? And not every organization needs to be at a level 5, or let's say it's very optimized, right? You have to be very realistic based on the amount of resources that you have, amount of investments, and amount of support that you have from the management. And based on that, let's say your goal is to be at a level 3 instead of level 5. You kind of put like a roadmap together where you want to be and how you actually are going to be there, right? So it needs to be more of a phased approach. Maybe at the first level, you want to see, do I have any audit points against my program itself? Let's say, like there is a recent compromise with the secrets getting exploited, right? Or my source code got leaked, or 𝗦𝗽𝗶𝗄𝗿𝗽𝗲, right? So you start from there and see, okay, what else can I actually build around that particular thing to prevent? And even from a secret, you don't have to use commercial tools. You can actually use like open source tools, which does that, right? But it also needs to be based on a roadmap that you need to establish even before you start the program, and then say, okay, I'm going to achieve those things.
Got it. Yeah.
Right.
And have you done leverage that same kind of practice, Russell, as you've been growing the program there at SnapDocs?
Right. Well, I think that, okay, basically AppSec and being successful in AppSec, it's people, process, and systems, right? So I think that you're exactly right that you're adding or changing like the scanner, the security testers, security scanners, and you do those as appropriate and you evolve those over time and do the right, make the right judgments on what gives the best test results for you and giving those things. But I think we should also look at the people side, right? So what DevSecOps is also not just automated testing and we're getting results, but it's also like a distributed ownership of security, right? Mm-hmm. So that it's really important. Well, one of the things you should do initially as well in early phases is set up a security champions program. And I think the security champions program is, and I don't just make that as, it's not just a community of security, people interested in security, but actually I like having security champions who are dedicated with each individual engineering pod or group, so that are the liaison to the central security team. So they have ownership and we have responsibilities. And what I'm trying to say is that you set up, you make a formal dedication of time or resources for these distributed security champions so that they have formal duties or things that they're actually doing for you, right? And you can kind of coordinate this large distributed team, right? Then you have there should also be a centralized team of security engineers who can actually who can work closely with all the security champions and provide them with guidance as security professionals, but also make sure that all the security testing systems are working the way they're supposed to, provide calibration and things like that. So there's roles, basically, is what I'm trying to get at, that you want to build up as well. And I think this is one that building the right people and the right responsibilities and roles are just as important as doing the tooling, right? In order to get to your security maturity.
You bring up a good point, right? Because we all know, the metric, right? Security is outnumbered by development by at least 100 to 1. And I say at least because literally large automotive company last week, it was over 1,000 to 1. Or a large insurance organization like 6-9 months ago, that was over 2,000 to 1. So, it's real. So the security champion program gives you the ability to scale your impact, but without that executive buy-in that you were alluding to there as well. And you have to have an organizational shared ownership on software to mature it. I think that's kind of
right. Then you can actually do in your quarterly planning and things like that, actually assign responsibilities to these security champions and what their goals are, set objectives for the distributed team, right? And then you can also, really one of the things that the central team does is really, you're kind of doing security campaigns, which basically to me is like when you're looking at sets of vulnerabilities or things that really should be done better, security best practices that should be implemented. It's probably the right way to put it. That you're kind of, the central team is really steering the direction of what do we work on next, right? But also you're also providing calibration in the sense of what is most important, right? Looking at the risks, because I think that's what the central team can do well. The distributed team can't, is actually risk calculation, right? To figure out what is the likelihood and what is the impact of those risks, right? So they can so the business can do the right thing. So you're doing prioritization centrally is what I'm trying to get at, right? I think that's important as well. So you can kind of control this whole fleet of security champions and all the automated systems that we have for CI/CD and everything else. Sure. Right.
Well, if you can believe it, that was 15 minutes. So thank you very much, folks. Russell, I'll see you at RSA. We're going to do that presentation in the early expo area. I'm looking forward to that. Aruneesh, I know we have a session coming up at, what time is it? 2 p.m. Pacific, where you're going to be leading the session on right sizing the maturity model. So we'll look forward to that, and I'll look forward to doing my handover to you then. So thank you both very much. We all really appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.